the Hall of Fame head coach, NFL on Fox analyst, Jimmy Johnson, back on the program. Morning, Jimmy. How are you?
Dan, how are you doing? Hadn't talked to you in a while.
What time did you get up today?
Actually 4:30. I get up about 4:30 every morning.
Did you get up that early when you coached?
Yep, about 4:30, 5 o'clock. I was in the office by 5:30 almost every morning.
What can you accomplish? I guess there's nobody there where,
Right.
that probably helps.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always like to go in the office for a couple hours prior to my staff meeting to kind of go over what I wanted to go, talk about in the staff meeting, what we had to accomplish that day, et cetera. And then I hired Norv Turner. It's my second year in Dallas. And so, I go in about 5:30 and Norv's already there. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like somebody, and it disrupted my whole day, And so the next morning I go in about 5:15, Norv's there. and then about, I tried about 4:45 and Norv was there. I said, hey, we're going to have to stop this. We're not going to get any sleep at all. Let's make a pact. Let's go come in at the same time at least.
Chuck Noll famously told his assistants to go home. Like, you have families, go home. Dick Vermeil would, sleep over at the office when he was coaching. Like, has coaching changed, or is it still that you're going to be here till 11 or 12 at night?
It just really depends on the situation. For instance, I was in charge of personnel. And I talked to Urban Meyer about this before he took the Jacksonville job. I said, if you're going to really use your expertise, you're going to have to be in charge of personnel. And so that's going to be a 12-month out of the year job. It's a round-the-clock job if you're doing coaching and personnel. And so that's the way it was for me. Now, the one thing that I did do, even though I went in the office really early every morning, I would purposely, go home about 10 o'clock at night because I know as long as I was staying there, my assistants were going to stay there. And I didn't want them to stay there doing busy work just because the head coach was still in the office. So I made a point to leave the office by 10 o'clock at night.
Did you try to talk Urban Meyer out of the Jacksonville job?
No, actually, we had a couple of conversations when Texas was trying to hire him. And I wanted to compare college coaching and professional coaching, which he had never done. And I told him, I said, if you think college coaching is a grind, I said, hey, professional coaching is a completely different world. In college, even though you got recruiting, you've got a family life, you've got a social life. You can actually go play golf in the off season. You've got time to yourself. I said, if you're going to be in charge of personnel, which you should be, because he knows all the college players. I said, if you're going to be in charge of personnel as well as the head coach, you're not going to have any time for family, for social, for anything. And there are coaches that could delegate, and, they made a point of going home, like you say, Dick Vermeil or some of the rest of them, but that wasn't my personality. If there was work to be done, I was going to be there.
How close do you think it was for Urban to take that Texas job?
He debated on it. Obviously, University of Texas is it's a premier job. But I told him, I said, I had a chance to go to Texas myself, leaving the University of Miami. I said, but, I love living in Miami. And so I didn't do it. And he said, he had already accomplished so much in college football at Ohio State and at Florida. Yeah. I don't think the lure of Texas meant as much to him as what it might have been to somebody else.
You famously came up with the draft chart where, you assessed the value of where you were picking in the draft or what draft picks were worth. Does that still hold up now? And if so, let's look at Deshaun Watson. And what would you want in return if you're the Texans GM?
Well, the one thing about the draft chart, and I've talked to a bunch of people about this, you really can't put a player into the draft chart because you don't know the value of the player. The draft chart is really for picks versus picks.
Okay.
If you're in the first round, you want to move up, you trade a third rounder and swap number ones, et cetera, et cetera. So it put a value on all of the picks. But Al Davis and I talked about this, uh, he wanted to do it, with players. I said, Al, you can't do it with players. You don't know the value of a player. And he said, the thing about it, and after I did the chart, I studied all the other teams and I studied all of their trades. And he was all over the map as far as the value of picks. And I asked him, I said, there's some teams like the 49ers, they were right along the line. And I talked to them about it. They didn't have a chart, but they studied it. And so they had a little bit of an idea. And Al was just everywhere. And he said, I'm a personnel guy. I'm not a value guy. He said, if I want a player, I don't care how much it takes. I'm going to go get that player. And so I'll overpay for players. He said, you won't. You're a value guy. And if they're asking too much, you'll move on to the next player. But anyway, with the chart, you only use it for picks.
What would you give up or what would you want for Deshaun Watson?
If I was head coach David Culley, I would go and knock on Watson's door, and I'd have me a couple of Michelob Ultras, and I'd say, listen, let's work this thing out somehow, some way. I mean, I had a similar situation, when I was in Dallas. Troy Aikman didn't like me a whole lot that first year because I drafted Steve Walsh. But I drafted Steve so I could trade him later and get some picks, which I got a 1, 2, and a 3 for him. And I had to walk a tightrope between the two players because I didn't want to diminish the value of Walsh. And so I couldn't play favoritism, with either one of them. So Troy didn't like that at all. Well, after I traded Steve, I went and knocked on Troy's door. And we sat down and we got to working, and I actually set up a tropical fish tank for him. So if I'm Culley, I'd do whatever it takes. Hey, forget about pride, forget about ego. You go and sit with Watson and somehow work it out. Hey, we can make this thing work right here with the Texans.
We had Troy on last week, and Troy told us this story again about that NFC title game where he got concussed. He was in the hospital. He said, I still don't remember the game, but he played in the Super Bowl a week later, Jimmy.
And did not play as well as Troy can play. We struggled. I think he might have thrown an interception in the first half. We struggled the first half, and we went into the locker room at halftime. I think we may have been down, or it was a tight game. And I told the guys, I grabbed the offensive line and Emmett. I said, we're going to go back out there, and I said, Emmett, you get ready. I said, I'm not going to give you a breather. We're going to pound them. We're going to run the football. We went out there and run the power. Emmett touched the ball, like every play except one in that particular drive, and we took the lead. Troy was not at his best because of the concussion.
So you realize that, and that's where you said to the offensive line and Emmett, we're going to win this. We got to win it this way. We can't rely on Troy.
And we were number one in the league in defense too. So, that had a lot to do with it. But we ran the power, we're pulling big old Nate Newton and leading Emmett right up on the right side. We ran the power 4 or 5 times and took it right down the field and scored. And Troy in the last game of the year, he didn't play, I think, the last game of the year. Bernie Kosar came in there and helped us beat San Francisco. And so, Troy was not at his best, because of that concussion.
How would you coach differently, or would you coach differently if you were coaching now in the NFL?
The league would make me coach differently. I mean, we were in pads and we were scrimmaging Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We never went in shorts. We never went in shells. We were in pads. So the league would make me, change the way I coached. And that's a difficult thing, because if we were in shorts in a practice, I was bored. I wanted a physical football team. So I would have us in a physical type of workout as much as it's allowed. And so that would be the big thing as far as trying to be a little bit more physical. That's why you see such poor tackling now in the game, because they don't tackle in practice. They don't have contact in practice. And I've talked to a bunch of trainers around the league. We did a little bit of a study getting ready for the Fox show. And half a dozen of the trainers said because there's not contact in practices, he says that really leads to more injuries because players don't know how to fall. Players are not expecting contact. Players don't protect themselves. And really, the more contact you have, in their opinion, the fewer injuries you're going to have, especially the early. I know I talked to the trainer in Jacksonville, and he had Tom Myslinski. He played for me in Dallas, and he said it takes a couple of weeks of contact with players before they get accustomed, to the game speed. And so, not having contact in practice, I think it really hurts the team. But and don't tell these players that, because these players are going to say, hey, let's legislate rules to where we won't have any contact.
Is the greatest quarterback of all time, should it come down to the number of Super Bowls you win?
Yeah, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time.
But if I said you had to face a quarterback, or let's say you had to start a franchise.
There's no question.
You're starting your franchise with Tom Brady over anybody?
No.
Okay.
There's no question who I'd start it with. The greatest quarterback of all time is Tom Brady because of his record and his Super Bowl wins. The most talented quarterback I've ever seen is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is unbelievable what he can do. I mean, he can do it all. He can make all the throws. He has such a feel for the game. He has such vision, and he's mobile. Patrick Mahomes is the most talented quarterback I've seen. But the greatest quarterback of all time is Tom Brady because of what he accomplished.
But if you said you had to face a quarterback, game on the line, the quarterback you don't want to face in a one-game elimination is who? All time.
Patrick Mahomes. But let me cushion that a little bit.
Okay.
I would face either quarterback depending on their supporting cast. Whichever one has both of them can beat you. Both of them can win. But who has the best supporting cast? Who has the best defense? We talked about our Dallas teams. Everybody talked about the triplets. And the triplets were the first to go in the Hall of Fame. But they overlooked that we were number one in the NFL total defense. Now eventually Charles Haley went into the Hall of Fame. But it's a team game, Dan. And as great as those quarterbacks are, I talked to Troy our second year. He had hurt his shoulder. We would have made the playoffs. He didn't make the Pro Bowl. And I said, I'm sorry, Troy. I tried to get you in the Pro Bowl. He said, Coach, just keep supporting, bringing, my supporting cast. Just keep bringing me players. I'll go to plenty of Pro Bowls.
I thought you were going to say Montana or Elway.
Did they win as many Super Bowls as Brady?
No, like starting a franchise.
Oh, no, I said Patrick Mahomes.
I know, but I thought you might have gone Elway or Montana to start a franchise over Patrick Mahomes.
I think Patrick Mahomes is more talented than either one of those two. Like I said, he's the most talented quarterback I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know if he's more talented than This is my opinion. I think Elway, is maybe the most talented quarterback I've ever seen, and that goes back to the late '60s. But
so how are we going to solve this thing?
We're not over some Mick Ultras. Tell me what you're doing with Mick Ultra with the Super Bowl.
Well, Michelob Ultra's got a really cool commercial, Super Bowl. It's, are you happy because you win? Or do you win because you're happy? And it brought up a point to me. I said, I'm a much better coach, when I'm upbeat and positive and happy. I did a much better job there. And so it's really a cool commercial. And plus, just 95 calories and 2.6 carbs, it keeps me slim and trim.
If it made my hair look like yours, then I would definitely drink it. Definitely drink it. But you've got Serena's in it. Peyton Manning's in the commercial. Are they involved in this?
I've got to recollect. There's a bunch of cool people.
That covers it.
I'm not in it though.
Yeah, why aren't you in it?
And let's talk to the advertisers about that. I need to be in it.
It's always great to talk to you. Hope you're in good health, good spirits, and thanks for joining us as always, Jimmy.
Well, when you're happy, you win, Dan.
Thank you, buddy. That's Jimmy Johnson, NFL and Fox analyst, two-time Super Bowl champ, and Hall of Famer.